about taking control of the path. I mean, it really is. I mean, I'm ever grateful for my time in corporate and for the opportunities that it gave me, for the platform it gave me, for the ability to grow. And I don't think I even knew how much I learned in corporate and what I really understood and knew about business until I left corporate. But now having the flexibility and the wherewithal to be able to do what I want, when I want, and pick my kids up from school every day, and have lunch with them and help them with their homework and really go on their field trips. I just really freaking enjoy being a dad. And that's my number one priority in life. I can tell you more than any of it. So it's given me that path, and hospitable host, you'll hear more about that journey too. So.
Welcome to the Hassle-Free RE Podcast, a real estate podcast where we bring you stories, education, and tips for investors and real estate enthusiasts. If you're interested in investing in real estate or just want to keep a pulse on what's happening in the market, then this podcast is for you. Thanks so much for listening and tuning in. If you enjoy our show, please make sure to subscribe and give us a 5-star review. We'd greatly appreciate it. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Hassle-Free RE Podcast. My name is Dave Menapace, and I am your host. And today I am joined by a fellow hospitable host, which we'll get into at some point during the show. His name is Fouad. He is a real estate investor, specifically now in short-term rentals. Him and I probably have a similar hairline because of long-term rentals that we've both done, and we'll touch on that for anyone that's watching this on the YouTube. But we're going to walk through Fouad's journey from being a corporate investment banker all the way through now in hospitality. And we're just going to dive in. We're going to share some stories and we're going to have some fun with it. So with that, Fouad, why don't you take us back as far as you would like to? Kind of give yourself an introduction. We'll start there, and then we'll reel it back and start from the beginning.
Awesome. Thanks. And so excited to be here, and thanks for having me, and always love adding value wherever I can. So 21-year corporate banker, really simple, ran through a gamut of positions. With the last 9 years of that, I was in correspondent banking, where we basically banked other banks. We competed with the Federal Reserve and acted as a clearinghouse for these community banks that were 25 billion in assets and less. I live in Detroit, and my portfolio spanned from Detroit to Ohio to California. And I was on the road a lot, and I really loved my job. I mean, I had a great job. I got to mingle and build relationships with the C-suite at all these community banks, play golf with them all in sports stadiums, all that other stuff. But, I always knew there was more. I always knew there was an ability for me to kind of take control of my own path. In 2019, we had our third child, our daughter, and just being on the road so much, it really got me thinking about just wanting to be home more with my kids. My boys at the time were, 3 and 2, and I really needed to be back. My wife is an attorney, has her own law firm. She started, she was doing really, really well. So I knew that I could leave the comfort of my corporate lifestyle and get a little entrepreneurial. Started a business, did pretty well, but then COVID hit, kind of turned left. Had a long-term rental. I wasn't a very good landlord. I was the guy that, couldn't kick anybody out if they couldn't make payments. I would just let them stay and don't worry about, nobody was going to sleep on the streets on my dime. And I wasn't going to change that trait about myself. And so also, since we've had kids, we've been traveling in short-term rentals because it's way more convenient with kids. And so putting all those things together and loving my clients and my banking history, and in my business, my customers, in short-term rentals are our guests, loving building relationships with people and being on the journey with them and creating great, memorable experiences. Started putting all that together that I wanted to be on the short-term rental side. My daughter, who's now 3, at the time was 1.5 when we found out she had severe nut allergies. And the best food allergist in the world is in California, Long Beach.
Right.
So the program for her, based on her blood work, says for the next 4 years, we've got to be there every 2.5 months. So I started doing the math. I'm a banker, I'm a numbers guy, and like, no bueno, right? Renting in
Right.
California is not easy. It's not cheap. So we bought one in Huntington Beach, decided that would be our kind of our second home. When we're out there, that's where we would stay. And otherwise we would short-term rent it, offset all of our costs. And then getting into real estate masterminds and investing in myself helped me realize that this wasn't going to be just an investment thing. This was going to be a full-fledged business where I get to create wealth and build assets, but also give back and really start to educate people on that. And so here we are 14, 15 months later. We just launched, we're literally in the middle right now of launch number 6. We're
Nice.
on the larger home, four bedrooms and up. We stay boutique luxury. You know, I think the word luxury gets overused these days potentially. So I like to call ourselves luxury because we do model after the local Four Seasons and Ritz-Carltons wherever we are, but I'll use the word boutique maybe to distinguish it a little bit more even.
Mhm.
And that's where we are.
Nice, man. Well, there was a point in time when I lived about 10 miles north, or also known as like 3 hours north in Sherman Oaks,
Oh,
California.
cool.
That traffic in LA, it can be crippling sometimes, but so that's amazing. So what's really neat about your story is short-term rental was a really unique solution to a problem that you had. It wasn't necessarily, you know, like pure investment strategy. I'm losing money in the stock market, I'm going to go into the short-term rental space. This was more of a, how do we get creative because we have a need here?
Mhm.
And so when you did it, so let's go back to that. Were you analyzing properties in Huntington Beach and seeing what other people were making, any of those types of tools, or were you kind of like, let's just rent it and offset it, and then you kind of learned that you enjoyed it and kind of built from there?
So I knew because I was a correspondent banker and a big part, well, I owned the entire territory of California for our organization. I knew California really well. I really liked Huntington Beach. I really enjoyed that market. We had been there multiple times before, just personally on vacation and whatnot. So and then of course I needed to be within a good distance of the doctor, and so that
Right.
was within kind of a 20-minute range. It was more affordable to buy near the beach in Huntington than it was, for instance, in Redondo Beach or one of the
Right.
more northern beaches. So I think all of those things really started to play into it. Um, and then analyzing obviously the income that we could get. I'm a big appreciation guy, and so as a lot of short-term renters really focus on cash, and I get it, and so do I. You know,
Right.
for me, it's not as important to have 40, 50% cash on cash returns. I know that sounds
Right.
crazy, but I don't believe those numbers are real sustainable numbers when I hear those numbers get thrown out. I'm into appreciating markets and appreciating assets. That's a big deal for me because we buy and hold. If I was buying and
Right.
selling in 2 or 3 years, maybe that's not as important and that shouldn't be as important. But I want to know that we're going to be in markets where there's going to continuously be development, redevelopment, and new money being poured in. And I saw that happening, especially in the small radius of the neighborhood that we bought in.
Right.
And we are experiencing that now, 15 months in, and we're already appraising at 700K plus where we
Right.
bought. So that was all those factors really important to me.
Totally. And I 100% agree. So we have short-term rentals in Cape Cod. You know what I mean? And what I love about Cape Cod is that there's no new construction. The beach isn't going anywhere. If anything, it's getting closer to your house. um, but but to your point, like they're very strong. I mean, I was having a call with Kenny Bedwell not that long ago, and we were talking about, Northeast markets in a lot of ways can be really similar to California and Southern California in terms of the appreciation play. And, people have been vacationing in some of these areas for literally over 100 years. And it's like there's always going to be that desire. And at the same time, I have a house up in Sunday River area of Northwest Maine. Right now, Sunday River is the biggest ski resort in the Northeast, and it was just bought. Talking about appreciation, it was just bought about a year ago by the same folks that own like Big Sky and a bunch of these other big mountains and resorts out west, and they're planning on doubling the size from 8 mountains to 16 mountains. It'll be the biggest ski resort in the country. And then there's a train that's going in from Boston to Montreal right through that area. you better believe it's going to appreciate in value, you know. And the other thing is, I think when a lot of people look at cash on cash, they only look at year one. I'm not exactly sure why, but every year you're adding to you're slapping on more money to that return. You know what I mean?
Just right.
And your startup costs as well. Sorry, I geek out about this because I had like 4 texts come in last night on this exact topic from different people. But you know, all of your startup money that goes into a house when you buy a house in year one, you got to remember there's tax benefits on the back end to that. So I don't know. Everyone analyzes it different, but
I know.
I agree. I'm okay with a very modest, you know, cash flow, so long as I have a really strong sense of like what is bringing people to the area. All right, enough of me talking. So, anyways, so Huntington Beach. Obviously, some things have happened in between them. What were some of your earliest learning curves? And maybe we talk about it with just having one, and maybe we talk a little bit about the mastermind and how that helped on the education front.
Yeah, it's the mastermind, getting into it as I was purchasing really did help and streamline the learning curve. I mean, it was pretty flat line. I mean, I think, coming out of the semi consulting world where, we were always focused on efficiencies and processes with our clientele, and then also having started a business on my own, I I kind of had a good grasp for, that's one of my strengths, is getting in and really understanding. I'm not a perfectionist. I don't plan on ever being a perfectionist. As a matter of fact, I think being perfect is where you go wrong. You just kind of got to go and then connect dots where you can and improve. So that's one of my skill sets. It's just kind of understanding, studying really well. And when I dive in, I mean, I research the hell out of something. So the masterminds are a big deal. And I tell you that my first mastermind was a $30,000 mastermind for the first year. And a lot of people are like, dude, what are you doing? Why would you spend money to be in that room? And it's like, I think this is where, this is probably for a completely different question, is it's not an expense. It's only an expense if you don't know how to execute. These are
Right.
investments, because you go in there, you raise capital, you have relationship capital, you figure out,
Yeah.
go from an investor to a visionary, and all of a sudden
Right.
your business is 3 villas in, and that 30K is something I'll never remember again in my life. Uh,
Right.
but I pushed way beyond my wildest dreams, right? But so yeah, I mean, that obviously helped out in talking to other people that were in the industry. For me, I went from 0 to 3 properties. I had 3 under contract within a month. I got the one in Huntington Beach, two in one in Phoenix, one in Scottsdale, basically that the same.
Nice.
And so we had to learn really, really quickly.
Right.
I would tell you, is one of the biggest learning curves that I had was, it probably came way later, 6 months later, when I was launching 2 more in Scottsdale. And when you launch properties in a market, man, timing your launch is such a big deal, right? And you know this, you've been in it longer than I have.
Yep.
When I launched the first 2, it was December in Scottsdale. And it's like, man, it is the easiest thing in the world to Airbnb or short-term rent in Scottsdale and Phoenix in the spring, because you've got 16 Major League Baseball teams doing spring training there. You got your bachelorette parties, a waste management golf tournament. This coming year, 23, we have the Super Bowl. I mean, it is the easiest no-brainer thing in the world. Then I launched 2 in late summer, and coming off the ground was really difficult, because the fall has way less planning, way less reason. People have already planned way in advance. So you've got to have last minute stragglers that are booking their places. And I'm seeing it because those 2 properties that took a hard lift off, they're now fully booked in the spring. And
Right.
so it's, I mean, timing your launch and understanding your market. It's not just understanding your market on a 12-month basis, it's also understanding on a 3 to 6 month basis, what is my cash flow going to be immediately, not just long term. And so that was something that I learned real quickly there.
And, the other thing too is if you're going to be launch, like sometimes you just don't have control over when you launch, right? Like you see a good deal, you're not, like we were discussing, you're not buying it for that first year. And sometimes it's going to go a little bit tougher. One little trick I give people is if you're going to be launching if you know you're going to be closing and ultimately launching going into the slow season, try and close on the very first day of the month. So at least that way you're going 8 weeks before you're making a mortgage payment. I mean, at the end of the day, it's like, well, I just bought a $5,000 couch. So if I have a $5,000 mortgage, but like it all kind of gets bundled in, but every dollar does help. And
Yeah.
it can at least pull you through. And then to your point, some people might also kind of wonder, why is that? Why also like what other challenges are there with launching in the off season? You also got to remember, with Airbnb and VRBO, whenever you launch a property, those first 30-ish days or so, they're keeping you on the first page. So it's really easy to get a ton of bookings. I should say it's easier to get a substantial number of bookings. And then after the first month, you really got to work for it. So it can just make it a little
True.
tougher in the off season.
So true.
Um, so so that was really interesting. Now, in terms of did over the last, was it about year and a half or so you've been doing this, right?
Mhm.
Are there any systems that you initially implemented that you had to pivot on? Maybe it was technology you used, or maybe it was team members and their roles and responsibilities. And what does that look like?
Yeah, and it's funny. I'm a huge contrarian in the industry when it comes to tech stack. So I initially, when I launched my first three, I went a few weeks where I just kind of put them on Airbnb and VRBO, and I was managing through the apps directly.
Yeah.
And I was getting 5, 6 inquiries a day. And then I integrated with a property management software, a PMS.
Yeah.
And as soon as I integrated, I went from 5 or 6 inquiries a day to zero. And
Really?
so, of course, I thought, okay, something's got to be wrong in the integration here. So I worked with their IT team and, hey, guys, we're still in onboarding mode here. What's going on? And they said, well, no, everything looks good on our side. Give us a couple of days and you should be back. Okay, cool. So that was on a Tuesday where I reported to them. The following Tuesday, I was still at zero inquiries and I was still communicating with them. Guys, what are we doing? Well, let us get our head IT guy. Great, get your head IT guy. Well, he came in, he troubleshot, did all his stuff. Everything looks good on our side. Another week goes by, and on our third week, I still had zero inquiries.
Wow.
So I immediately disintegrated with them. The next day I got back to 5 or 6 inquiries a day. And so, for me, I'm a huge contrarian when it comes to this. I know all the industry experts tell you your tech stack and get a PMS and then get a dynamic pricing software and then sign up the other one and then that one and then that one. It's like, before you know it, you've given away 13% of your gross income just in your tech stack. And for me, what I said was, I'm going to keep control over everything. I'm at 6 villas. I mean, we go with larger properties. I'm not trying to get 1,000 doors. That's another conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah, but for me, I want, my goals are very clear. $50 million real estate portfolio, and I want it in 50 homes. I don't want 1,000 doors. That sounds miserable to me. I do not want to manage any doors. If I get a boutique hotel, something like that, that is something that's on the radar. But outside of that, we want really nice, big, luxurious homes that are single unit. And so, for me, the only inefficiency is sometimes I have to message in Airbnb, sometimes I message in VRBO. The reality is most of us use multiple messaging apps anyways, between our text messaging apps and our WhatsApp groups and our instant, Facebook messaging. So like, it's really not that big of an efficiency, especially at such a low quantity of properties. So what I did is, rather than investing in tech, I invested in VAs. And so I've got a team of 4 VAs that, when you look at them, plus the property manager who I just hired is one person on the ground that really takes care of all my properties for me at a really affordable rate. When you look at my all-in cost on those things combined, I'm at about a 6% property management fee, which is
Amazing.
way lower than the industry standard of 15%. And if you're at 15%, you're either really lucky or you got a really bad property manager.
Yeah.
They're at 20, 25 plus in the short-term rental space, right? So my cost structure is really efficient right now. And I've got room to either scale that up and grow it, or to spend my money on marketing and advertising and content creation and other things. So
Right.
I'm not a tech guy. I do not use tech stack. I use simply the direct. The other thing is, and I'll keep going on that if you don't mind.
Yeah, no, I think this is totally different and I love it. So keep
Yeah.
going.
So the other thing that I talk about a lot is the algorithm, right? I mean, we talk
Yeah.
about having to fight the Airbnb and the VRBO algorithm, and it gives you points for certain things, and you get boosted up, and we're always looking at our rankings in those algorithms. Well, you have to fight that algorithm. Imagine now you layer in a property management software on top. Now you have to fight that algorithm and the Airbnb algorithm. Then you have a dynamic pricing software. You're fighting that algorithm as well. And you're layering all these integrations on top of each other. The bank I worked for, we had all kinds of layered technology, and it was clunky as heck on the inside. And it was just, I was gonna say a word I probably
Yeah,
won't.
yeah, you can drop fire. It's all right, man.
Okay,
No
good.
kids are listening.
So we, so for me, it was keep it simple, stupid. And
Yeah,
and it was just, Airbnb has good smart pricing as it is. So if I wanted to use
right.
that, maybe it's not as robust as a Price Labs, but it was robust enough that I could still control my pricing, train my VAs to really manage a heck out of it. So I still have all my time out of it, and I'm only doing what I want. I'm not taking on tasks that I don't want at this point.
Right. Wow. Well, and what I love is it's not like you signed, a lot of people get a PMS to take, moving parts or variables out of the equation or to give themselves like a more streamlined approach. And you kind of just said, my time's worth more than that if I want to be operating up here. Let's get in the right people. It's a very who, not how method, right? Like, let's get in the right who's to solve this problem. And they're going to be operating it on the day to day, anyways. Um, it's really interesting. So the property management software that I use is IGMS, and I don't have a ton of integrations. I have Price Labs, and then like the key lock situation goes through that too. And I communicate with some cleaners through it, some don't. And I'm still now I have my VA text them or email them and what have you. But um yeah, it's interesting. Now I'm kind of like, maybe I unplug for a week and see if that helps to boost things, and at least in the off season for some. It's
Well,
it's a really
and I'll tell you, and I know it's spring in Scottsdale, so it's easier, but I still hear a lot of hosts saying they're not as booked as they were last year. And I can tell you, I don't have the same issue. So I don't know if it's because we're more luxurious and boutique. And so the clientele that I'm going after, we're priced higher. Can they
right.
are they're still traveling despite the recession because they can afford it? Or is it because of our reviews and Superhost? But there's a lot of those out there. But also, you find me pretty quickly on the search. And so is that because I'm unintegrated? Maybe. I think so. I like to think so. But again, I know that there are a lot of industry experts out there that would tell you not. But I also know that a lot of those industry experts have affiliate links and get paid for marketing a lot of those
Yeah.
other I don't. So, that's a big part of it as well.
Right, right. Um, Quick question. So, just like on the mastermind front, I'd love to hear how you went about selecting the mastermind that you did, and feel free to share what the name of it is too, if you'd like. Maybe there's
Yeah,
some
no doubt.
listeners that are interested.
No doubt. So I joined two masterminds this year. First one was Avengers. Avengers, it was at $30,000. I think it's up to $35,000 a year now. And that one is, I mean, it's mega education and mega networking. And it was extremely impactful, changed my mindset completely. And I got in that room and realized real quickly I was one of the bottom 5 guys in that room. And it was great because I was just like deer in headlights, learn everything I can, sponge everything I can. And it was amazing. And the way I got into it, frankly, was a coincidence. I was checking into a hotel in Huntington Beach. I was flying down there for a day just to look at properties.
Hmm.
And so, as it turned out, my wife comes across an ad on her social media about Avengers Mastermind that's at the same hotel that I'm checking into that same weekend. I'm like, cool.
Wow. Yeah.
So I link up with them and interview. I'd done a lot of conferences that I attended in the banking industry. And for those that aren't as familiar with masterminds are ultimately conferences for yourself as an investor or entrepreneur. It's a great way to go get education, build relationships, and potentially form partnerships.
Yeah.
And so I joined Avengers, and I was scared because here's 30K. What am I doing? What do I really, am I really, what's going to happen with this? But I'm also have enough confidence in myself to go and execute. I'm not a guy I'm very extroverted, so I don't go just
Yeah.
sit on a chair and wait for people to come to me. I go in there and I get my money,
Yeah.
and so the very first session of the weekend was about short-term rentals. And I'm telling you, in that 1 hour, I learned enough about the short-term rental industry and business that I could have left, gone, and got my money's worth right off the bat. I didn't have
Wow.
I mean, it was done for me. I mean,
Yeah.
but obviously I still had my 12 months to go. Avengers is founded by a group of individuals, and one of the individuals is Kent Clothier, Kent, Kent Clothier, who also is a founder and owner of Boardroom Mastermind. And
Okay.
I just really fell in love with him, his core values, his ruggedness, and what he's all about. He's all about the time is now, and fire yourself and get yourself out of the business so you can work on the business. And it just really resonated with me. His core values really hit home with me. So what I did is I paid $10,000 to go and spend a day with him in his office in San Diego and get to know him really well. Whiteboarded my business, strategized with him, fell in love with him even more. And so I joined the boardroom, which is also $35,000 a year. And I will be a boardroom member for the rest of my life. That's what I'll tell you, because what you'll learn real quickly about the mastermind is you got to like the guy at the top. Obviously, you got to
Right.
like the message and what's being spewed, because that's important. But those guys also only have so much time for you personally, because there's so many other individuals in the room while you guys
Right.
are all together. What's important is that you align yourself in a mastermind with a cohort of individuals, and all of your peers are also people that are just like you, right? So for me, it was, I want people that are family driven, really focused on their holistic improvement every single day, health, finances, all of it, right? And
Right.
really integrate that in their lives. But I've been part of some groups where, the networking hour starts and you got wedding rings coming off, and it's like, what are we doing here, guys? And
Yeah.
that's not for me. The boardroom
Right.
was one where it was a great culture. It forces you to really take action on your business and in the structure and the format that it is. So I love the boardroom, and I'll be a member of that for the rest of my life.
That is awesome. That is
Yeah.
awesome. It's really interesting because I think we're at this time, or at least I think the last few years, and this from bigger pockets, I think a little bit too. It's been a lot of people that want to get into investing in general. And it's sort of like, okay, they might have taken that $70,000 and put it right towards a house, like taking action that way. But what I try and tell people also is that you can put it towards your education as that investment too. And I've gone to several conferences now, and they're not cheap. These conferences aren't, inexpensive by any means. And like I just joined a mastermind, but before that, it was, every time I would put myself in those rooms with like-minded people and just like absorbing the content that's being, shared with me, took another big leap in my business, or took like another jump or several leaps. It always really, really helped. And there's nothing wrong with taking that 70K and not buying a house with it, but buying education. You know what I mean? You probably just learned way more out of those masterminds than you did, call
No
it,
doubt.
in a 4-year college
No doubt.
education.
Not to mention, it's all tax deductible.
Yep.
Not to mention, I've raised over 700K in that room, in those rooms. Not to mention, I've built relationships with people that have replaced a lot of my prehistoric relationships that really, frankly, I had outgrown. And not in a
Right.
bad way. I still love those people. It's not personal. It's just about, I'm on a mission. I'm on tunnel vision. I want to provide for my family. I've got a wife and 3 kids, and we have growth goals,
Yeah.
and I needed to surround myself with like-minded individuals, and everybody in those rooms is there to get better and pour into you and also be poured into. So they're great rooms. I mean, I've made my money 10x on those rooms.
Awesome. And is it being in those rooms with those people that got you to start looking outside of Huntington Beach and maybe in some of these other markets?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it creates your vision. It pushes you past some people will tell you stay in one market. Some people tell you spread, but ultimately just the more conversations you have in that room, your vision just really does. And coming out of the last one, I mean, what I love about the boardroom, I'll tell you, is there's a hot seat. So at every boardroom, every 90 days, we get up on stage. Everybody in the room gets up on stage for 30 minutes. And the first 5 minutes, who you are, what are your numbers, and what are your challenges. The next 25 minutes, let people pour into you and fix your problems, right? Or invest in you, or whatever it is. And so as great as the value is on the advice that you get, the fear of showing back up in 90 days with the same challenges. So you literally leave there on fire because you've got to go and create and build and improve and come back with a new set of challenges next time. And so it's really impactful for it. That alone you get your 30K from, because it just forces you to improve so much more. So we you know, it's evolved my business big time. Coming out of the last one in December, I came out. I very privately, I haven't publicly announced or released this yet, but I'll tell you. I mean, we put out our Airbnb mentorship, or our short-term rental mentorship, and it's called the Airbnb Launchpad. And by the way, I didn't want to use the word Airbnb in there. It is short-term rental to those of us in the industry, right? But there's also something that we know in the marketing space is Airbnb has generated so much SEO and so much traffic on Google searches that if you're not integrating that into you're missing a huge boat, right? Like, so I did incorporate, I did integrate it, and so I launched that, and the whole mission there is to just give back. I mean, I really want to help people to kind of take control of their own path.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. So let's talk about hospitable hosts, shall we?
Yeah, man.
Let's do it. So I've mentioned it on like sort of vaguely on the last few episodes of Hassle-Free RE, but both of us here are collaborators, co-authors in the newest edition, I guess, the second edition of The Hospitable Host, which is a collaboration of 40-ish authors. Some people got cut because they didn't submit their chapter in time, apparently, but that's not us anyways. And that is really, a chapter on each of our stories. So why don't you speak to us about, and to the listeners about, how you ended up getting connected and finding that opportunity, and maybe just a little primer over some of the things you might share, or drop, or talk about in your chapter.
No doubt. No doubt. So, I like you, I got to network with Julie George down in Miami. Julie's an amazing resource in the industry, and she's kind of way ahead in the sense that she's already made an exit in her business, and that's something we aspire to do on my side as well. I can tell you that. And what I'm grateful for the opportunity, because yes, we do get the marketing and all that out of it, but it's led to relationships like this, and just out of the blue, meeting a bunch of other hosts that are going through the same kind of journey and growth patterns and challenges that we all do, right? And so it's been great from that perspective. My entire chapter is going to focus on, well, I'll tell a little bit about the brand and my journey, but of course, it's about taking control of the path. I mean, it really is. I mean, I'm ever grateful for my time in corporate and for the opportunities that it gave me, for the platform it gave me, for the ability to grow. And I don't think I even knew how much I learned in corporate and what I really understood and knew about business until I left corporate. But now having the flexibility and the wherewithal to be able to do what I want, when I want, and pick my kids up from school every day, and have lunch with them and help them with their homework and really go on their field trips. I just really freaking enjoy being a dad. And that's my number one priority in life. I can tell you, more than any of it. So it's given me that path, and hospitable hosts, you'll hear more about that journey too. So.
Well, and I think it's reciprocated too. I would guarantee that, your kids are going to have such a better childhood experience, especially as they see their dad being energized by what he does, enjoying what he does, obviously enjoying taking care of them, but on the money making side, right, for lack of a better way of putting it, the whole, like, everything that you do, for your short-term rental business and growing that, like, that's really inspirational for a kid. And they absorb so much more than what we give them credit for sometimes. And I do think that feeds off. And to your point, like every Thursday I take my kid for skiing lessons, and He's 3.5 years old, and all I have to do is let my wife know. I don't have to
Yeah,
tell anyone else. I
yeah,
don't have to, you
love that.
know, and that's super important to me. And same sort of thing for you.
Love that. My
Were
boys are
you?
eight. My boys are
Go
8 and 6. My second one turns 7 tomorrow, so they're 8 and 7, and I integrate them into this. So I mean, they came down to Phoenix with me this past weekend, working on our sixth launch. I go unbox, go take those things out of the box, put the empty box, put the other empty boxes, and get them to take ownership in this because I'm going to help them understand it's not just go be a doctor or an engineer or some sort of corporate. That's great if that's their path and that's what they decide, but I want them to know that the math doesn't always add up on the 4-year undergrad diploma with the income that comes with that, and the time that you invest in all that, right? So you want to get into real estate investing at a young age, dude, I'm all for it.
Yeah. So one of our houses, our Cape house, our very first one, we put on we refinanced it after 2 years into a 15-year loan. And now we owe, I don't know, maybe like 12 and a half years on it. I just have this dream of like handing those keys over to the kids and being like, here's a business. Don't
Yep,
get hurt.
can't wait.
If you
Love
do,
that.
luckily we got other businesses. But yeah, don't, but like in all seriousness, I don't know. I just have this dream of being able to share that with them if it's something that they're interested in doing. Were you at the Miami conference
I
as
was,
well?
I was. We
Oh,
missed each other there.
yeah, yeah. Well, and it's funny. It's like the 3 days or 2 days is just goes like that. You know
Yeah,
what I mean? And I know, especially the second day, I had blinders on because I was a late night with dinner and just being at the hotel area networking. That's what we'll leave it at. But that's cool. And are you going to be in Nashville in
I
March?
will be in Nashville. Yeah, we've got our book launch, right? So
Yeah,
that'll be nice.
yeah.
A couple of some good short-term rental
Oh
education.
yeah. Yeah, we're gonna head in there Sunday morning and we're gonna head out, I think Wednesday night. But in that time, I'm sure we'll all be doing some masterminding together and maybe do some like live podcast things. That'll be a lot of fun.
No doubt.
Um, so what are your goals? Boom, here we are, right? January 2023. This episode will be launched in the next week or two. What are your goals for 2023? And then looking out a little bit further, what's kind of like your grand vision? I know you hit on it a little bit earlier, but like, what is it that you want out of this whole thing?
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, so the grand vision is to make an exit. I mean, it's 50 million, 50 homes, make an exit, be totally vertically integrated, make a big exit to private equity, Marriott Bonvoy, something like that. And if it doesn't happen, then I probably built something way bigger than I ever dreamed, and I get to run that, right? Or hire somebody.
Yeah.
So, uh,
Yeah.
but so I always say start with the end in mind, reverse engineer it. By starting with the end in mind, you get to form your daily habits, right? Forming your daily habits first, you really just start to get in this hamster wheel and you really just kind of don't know where you're driving. So start with
Mhm.
that and then back in for 2023. I mean, so we're at 6 in 15 months. I want to add 15 to the portfolio this year across 3 new markets. So we actively have 13 offers out in the market right now in Dallas. That's going to be our market. Get to 5 there, move on to the next market. Probably going to be San Diego and the outskirts of San Diego there, and then from there into the Pacific Northwest, most likely. So that's kind of the goal for me is 15 new homes. Don't pay taxes in 2023. Those are my
I
two
love it.
primary goals.
I have two questions for you. The first one is, what are some of your daily habits that kind of help you keep your mindset, straight and organized and ready to attack the day or evening, whatever it might be?
No doubt. My core values are HPLT, health, peace, love, and travel. I start every day with health. I'm up at 4:30 in the morning. I'm drinking a third of a gallon of water and hitting the gym pretty hard. I've got a gym here at my house, so I don't have to go very far. Just walk right across, hit the gym. I'm done with that. Get to my office, which is also here at my house, and do about an hour and a half of administrative work before my kids are awake for school. They get up, we help them get ready, drive them to school. I've kind of got my day. I'm already in motion. I'm already at 80 miles an hour. And kids get to school. I got meetings scheduled throughout the day if I have anything, but everything has to be done by 3 o'clock because at 3 o'clock Eastern, I'm going to pick my kids up. And for the next 4 hours, I'm dead. I'm just on dad and husband duty. And then from there, it's whatever else I need to do, right? So focus on content creation and making an impact, giving back. And that's what the mentorship is all about now, is putting some time into giving back.
Awesome. Awesome. I think there's a lot that people can pull out from that as they sort of start to think about how to structure their day or restructure them, to be successful. And, we're talking about a good amount of acquisitions this year. And you don't have to answer this if you don't want to, but what are some of the ways that you're financing these, and has any capital kind of streamed in through from networking in the masterminds or in other places?
Yep. So I use other people's money in the real
Mhm.
estate industry. That's OPM. I use OPM. To do all the down payments. We finance the rest, and then from there we use the cash flow to pay back my investor. We've got a good investment structure there, and that's how we do it. So investor puts a down payment in. 80% of the profits go to the investor until he's whole. I get 20% of the profit. I underwrite my deals to say that we're going to pay back within about 4 years.
Mhm.
And from there, we waterfall. Once he's whole, he or she are whole. We flip. I get 65% of the profit moving forward. They get 35% of the profit moving forward. But we're always 50-50 on the asset. Now, I can't
Yep.
sell the asset. There are milestones that have to be hit before we sell. So it's not like I can have the investor close on the loan and get my 50% tomorrow by selling behind his back kind of thing.
Right.
That all has to be, that's all worked out in our operating agreement, but that's how we do it.
Awesome, dude. I love that, man. Well, dude, this is really great. I think it'd be fun someday. We'll have to like kind of go deep into that, and like we'll do our own little like maybe mini course on that, or people should join your mentorship program and learn it that way. Is what they really should do.
Love to do that. Love to do that. Any way I can give back. I mean, that's the goal.
Awesome. Well, as we start to round this out, how can people reach you? How can people get in contact with you? Stuff we can put in the show notes.
Yep. So the best way to do it is on Instagram. My name, Fouad Bazzi _Airbnb. That's FOUADBAZZI _Airbnb. And then I've got in my bio there, you can click on the link, schedule some time with me. I'm always willing to put 15 minutes out there and see if I'm a good fit, or see if I can just give somebody some advice and light a little fire under their ass in 15 minutes. So
Yeah.
always willing to give back.
And if, I think there's still a couple tickets left for the Nashville conference. They can also find you there if they want to.
Awesome. Love that.
Awesome, man. Well, that's great. And a few just for our listeners, so a bunch of these links and all this contact information, all of it's going to be in the show notes. We can also be found on YouTube as well as the Instagram channel. Any parting words as we wrap this up?
Just think big, start with the end in mind, understand where you're going. Know that you don't have to, what I would tell everybody is you don't have to think about a way to get out of your W-2 in 2 months, right? It can be a 10-year plan, and that's okay. But understand what it's going to take. Really understand the numbers it's going to take for you to be earning, to be able to escape your W-2, to be able to control your own time. And by doing that, again, you can reverse engineer. Now you learn your daily habits. How many deals do I have to do this year, next year, whatever it might be? Just start getting down that path. Otherwise, you're always just going to sit back and say, well, what if?
That's right. Oh man, that's a mic drop moment right there. So with that, thank you to all of our listeners. Again, I'm Dave Menapace, your host. This is the Hassle-Free RE podcast, and thanks for joining.
Thanks for having me.
This podcast is brought to you by the 5-Star Co-Host, an Airbnb management and consulting company that helps homeowners turn their properties into passive income streams through short-term rentals. Do you want to turn your vacation house into a passive income stream? Then look no further. The 5-Star Co-Host has served over 1,000 guests in several Airbnb properties and in varying markets. The STR Co-Host, or the 5-Star Co-Host, is at the vanguard of the short-term rental industry by leveraging technology and systems to maximize the guest experience while achieving high revenue for owners. Get a free home analysis by emailing the 5-Star Co-Host at gmail.com. That's the 5-Star Co-Host at gmail.com. THEFIVESTARCHOHOST @gmail.com.